Buenos dias. Good morning, Calico and Denim. I hope you're all okay today. I've noticed on some of my videos, sometimes the little image of me in the corner cuts out. Don't worry if that happens. My webcam can be a bit faulty. If you just want to pause the video and mark your answers from yesterday, you can do that now. Okay, let's begin today's lesson. So we're continuing with reading and writing decimals today. Our non-negotiables for today are that pupils can identify the value of a set of place value blocks using decimal numbers. We've been doing loads of that. And pupils can say what each block represents using the terms tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So this is something we've been looking at as well, using these terms, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. We looked at those in the first lesson when I put them into the place value column. We looked at them yesterday when we were writing our decimals in written form. Okay, so let's get underway with this. In focus, we've got here again our block, which stands for 1. Our block made of 1,000 small parts, which stands for 1. And they're asking us, what number does one of these large blocks, one of these long ones, and one singular one stand for? So what do each of these parts of the block stand for? Because they all make up parts of it, but we need to know what each of them stand for. Okay? We should remember this from the lessons we've already done this week. But let's just go over it one more time. So a long one stands for a large flat one of these ones stands for 1/10. It's got 100 small pieces in it. 100 small pieces make it up. Why don't we call it 1/100th? We don't call it 1/100th because if we want to make the whole, we just have to use 10 of these. So 1/10, this is 1/10 of the whole block. And that's written as a decimal as 0.1. Okay, the long ones, we've got 2 here, but let's just focus on this one. Again, 1, and how many of these make up this whole block? It's 100. Write that as 0.01. And then, of course, as we already know, spoken about this already, we need 1,000 of these small blocks to make one whole. So we know that that is 1/1000th, and as a decimal, write that like that. This is the smallest value. This is 10 times smaller than this value, and this value is 10 times smaller than this value. Okay, that's not what it was asking though. I just wanted to review that. What it's asking is, what number do these blocks all stand for? Well, let's have a look at this here. So I can see already, I know that I've got 1/10. 1/10. Here we go. I've got 2 hundredths because I've got 2 of these long ones. 2 hundredths. And I've got 1 thousandths because I've just got one of the small ones. So what we want to do is we want to write this as a fraction, but we also want to write it as a decimal and in its written form, okay? So as a fraction, this will be 1, 2, 1, 121 over 1,000. Okay, we have to say it's over 1,000 because that's the largest value. We can't have 121 over 10. We can't have 121 over 100. It would be too big, but we can have 121 over 1,000. So we know we've got 121 parts of 1,000, 121 parts of our whole. So let's write that as a decimal. We know we can't make a whole, so it's 0. But we have got 1/10, we've got 2 hundredths, and we've got 1,000th. So it's 0.121. That equals, in the written form, 121 thousandths. You may be wondering what I've got under this big red square here. Well, I've got a friend of ours. It's red t-shirt, reddy orangey t-shirt with a triangle in the middle, and he's just showing us what we've already done here. Okay, that our decimal is 0.121. That is the same as 121 thousandths, 121 over 1,000 as a fraction. Okay, let's keep going. Yellow top here has done something that we've already seen a few times. We did this one yesterday. Let's just go over it again quickly. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4 small blocks. We know that one of these small blocks is 1,000th, or 0.001. So let's think about how we're going to write that in the fraction form, because it's going to help us write it as our decimal and in its written form. So 4 over, well, we know these are thousandths. It's 4 over 1,000. And that equals 0, because it's not a whole, 0, no tenths, 0, no hundredths, 4 thousandths, because we've got 4 thousandths. Okay, let's look at number 3. In yesterday's lesson, we added these values. We did something that looks like this. We can see that's 1/10 plus 3 thousandths. I don't want to do that today because I think we can already work that one out. If we want to look at it as a fraction, I think we can do that one in our heads. Just make that smaller. We can just write 1 because we've got 1/10, 0 because we've got no hundreds, 3 because we've got 3 thousandths, and there we go, 103 thousandths. How do we write that as a decimal? Pause the video and just write that one out as a decimal, please. Okay, so again, there's no whole, so we can't have any value here greater than 0. But we do have a tenth, we haven't got any hundredths, and we've got 3 thousandths. 103. Okay, fantastic. So we've got 3 more of those here. I would like you to pause the video and work these out. I want you to write the fraction, the decimal, and the written form. Just as we've done here, I would like you to write the fraction, the decimal, and the written form. So pause the video, and then we will go through that. Okay, so let's have a look at this. I'm just going to make my square. There we go. All right. So let's have a look at what we've got. The large blocks, the large flat blocks, which represent tenths, because we need 10 of them to make our whole. We have 1, 2, 3. So for our fraction, I could put 1. How many hundredths do we have? How many of the long blocks, which represent 100, because we need 100 of them, which represent a hundredth, because we need 100 of them to make our whole. How many of them do we have? Well, we've got 3. Do we? No, we've got 1. Oh, I've got mixed up. Sorry, we have 3 tenths and 1 hundredth. Excuse me, I got a bit mixed up. So we don't have any thousandths, so we cannot write a thousandth. Next value we have is a hundredth, so it's 31 over 100. This is the same as, written as a decimal, 0.31. And if you're doing it in its written form, we can write 31 hundredths. Okay? The next one. Again, there we go. So the next one, again, if we look at how many tenths we have, how many of the flat ones which each one represents tenths, we have got 3. So again, I'm going to put 3. I'm going to look at for how many hundredths I've got, the long ones. Well, I don't have any of them. So I'll put a 0 because I haven't got any. And then I'm going to look at how many thousandths I've got. Well, I've got 1, I can see. So this is 301 thousandths. How do we write that as a decimal? 0, because we cannot make one whole out of all of these. 0.301. We can write that in written form as 301 thousandths. The last one that you should have done . So again, if I look at my tenths, I can see that I have 1 and 2. I can put 2 there for my fraction. This one does have a hundredth. It does have one of the long pieces that represent 100. A hundredth even. So I could put 1, and it does also have a thousandth. It's got 1 thousandth, so that's 211 over 1,000. How do we write that as a decimal? Well, again, if I wanted to make my whole one, I could not do it with the amount of pieces I have got. I have not got enough. So 0.211. Write that here as 211 thousandths. So I hope you got those answers. Let's have a look now over the guided practice. It's again, it's very similar to what we were doing yesterday. I would like you to pause the video and try these out on your own. Then again, we'll go over them together. Okay, very helpfully, very helpfully, they've given us our block standing for 1 again, so we know that this is our 1, and we know that these different pieces are all part of it. What does blue shirt want us to do? Well, we're going to focus on this one. He wants us to write each number as a decimal, then write it in words. So I'm not going to write them as fractions here because blue shirt doesn't seem to want that. I'm going to write it as a decimal first. I can see I've got 1,000th, 2,000ths. No hole there. There's no tenths. There's no hundredths. There are 2,000ths, and that is the same as when written. P. And there is no hole. I cannot make a hole. I do not have enough blocks to make one of these. Do I have any tenths? No, I do not. Do I have any hundreds? Hundredths? Yes, I do. I've got 1. And do I have any thousandths? Yes, I do. Again, I've got 2. And I can write that as 12 thousandths. Okay, let's have a look at C. C. Okay, can I make a hole with the blocks I have available in C? No, I cannot. So again, 0. And then I want to look at how many tenths I've got. How many tenths? Well, I've got 1, 2, 3. I know if I have 10 of these, I will be able to make one hole, but I've only got 1, 2, 3. So I put 3 there in my tenths column. How many hundredths do I have? Well, I can see here I've got 100th. And how many thousandths do I have? There's one small one. So there we go. And we can write that as 311 thousandths. Make sure you're paying attention to whether we have to write thousandths, hundredths, or tenths. If you've got the small blocks available, it's going to be a thousandth. If there are no small blocks and the next largest value is a long block, well, that's going to be 100. And if there are only these blocks representing tenths, well, it's only going to be tenth. Okay. All right. Number 2, again, just like yesterday, you could have had various responses for this. You could, for example, put 0.12. I put 0 on the end? No, because there's no value there. If I have 0.12, then it's going to be 12 hundredths. I don't have any of the small blocks. I've just got 1 tenth and 2 hundredths, so it's 12 hundredths. I could also have 0.012. Oh, I've got that one already there. I could also have, for example, 0.2. And that would mean that I only had 2 of the large flat blocks. And that would be written as 2 tenths. Or I could have 0.021. That would be written as 21 thousandths. Because I would have 2 of the long blocks, and I'd have 1 of these small thousandth blocks, but I wouldn't have any of the large flat box. Okay, so for today's work, I would like you to complete worksheet 3, page 5 and 6. It's similar to the worksheet you completed yesterday. Also, there's going to be another ED quiz, another EEDI quiz. Make sure that you give me your reasons for answering questions, as again, that's going to really help me understand how well you have understood the work that we've been doing so far this week. And it's going to help me build some more questions for you. Okay, thank you very much and have a great day, Denim and Calico.